Going live. It's probably live already, but now we're live. Okay. Welcome to Worldwide Slot Car Chat on Zoom, number 178. I'm your host, Greg Gaub. The gang is all here with Phil and Courtney and Don and Mike and Krista and John and Scott and Gary, Gaza, Jeremy, Garth, Wayne, Jim, another Wayne, Geo, and more people. Let us speak of slot cars. Show and tell is how we start. John has his hand up already. Anybody who wants to do show and tell, raise your virtual hands, and I'll try to not miss you. Are you ready, John?
I am actually. So this past weekend, we had a slot car contingent in the Model 20 or Group 25 model car show, and I just thought I'd share a couple of photos. It was actually very large. This was one of the rooms. And I don't know if you recognize this chap sitting here, but that is Pete from Pete's Light Kits.
Yep.
And yes, I let him use my last name. It's okay. And what's really cool is that this is just one room. And I did ask if I could take like a whole big photo. And the people in this room were great, but the people in the other room, somebody said, well, I don't want my picture. So I couldn't take a picture of the other room. But the other room was actually larger and had lots of slot car stuff and models and really good. And there's Pete at work. You can see it's just booming business. No, it was great. Yeah, it was really a lot of fun. It was really nice to see people there too. And some people, I made a joke last week about Saskatchewan. This chap over here, right over there, Paul, came all the way from North Bay. Now, if anybody who is, take out your atlas, pull out a map of Ontario and take a look at the distance between North Bay and Toronto. That's quite a hike. So that's really kind of cool. And here's what I ended up purchasing. I talk on my little tiny YouTube channel about, the bags of $2 bodies. Well, they have gone up a wee bit in price. They're $5. They're $5 now. So there are people, these are like model car builders who don't really want 1/32 scale anything. So they bundle these bodies up and they have four for, wait for it, $20 Canadian. What is that, like 50 cents US? Something like that. But look at the bodies in this bag, folks. I'm like, there's a Palmer Lola T70. Okay, a Lindbergh GT40, no big deal. A Palmer Chaparral. And this, believe it or not, is a Tamiya Lola T70. All in 1/32 scale. But wait, there's more. Oh, look, another Lindbergh GT40. You have to separate them. If you put them. What's that?
Ferrari 512. The red
Yeah,
one.
they're $20 for the whole bag.
And then we have.
I want the J card, John.
Four.
Yeah.
G card.
Well, yeah. No kidding. So the reason that they have to separate the Lindbergh GT40s, if you put them in the same bag, they replicate. So that's why you have to separate them. This thing, believe it or not, is a Paramount Ferrari P4. There is the Eldon J car, and this thing is, believe it or not, a monogram Ferrari 158 F1. Now here it just shows you how honest Canadians are. So this is, yeah. Oh, sorry, I thought someone was calling.
Look like a G car from Ford.
Yeah, well, and then look at the price, $20 Canadian. Like, unreal. Like this is the great thing about these modelers. They're really into 1/24th, 1/25th. They don't like 1/32. It's brilliant for folks like us.
I know. Nobody does.
Yeah, exactly. And look at this. So I did find it. Now these are.
Sorry? I have that. I have that.
These are really cool, but they're 1/24th. But like,
I know.
This is how honest Canadians are, right? Like, he actually left the old price on, and I got the whole thing for $15. Like, how honest
15.
is that? $15,
Okay.
yes. Yeah, I know.
That's good.
I know. It is very good.
Man.
Yeah. So here they are out of the box, and God bless whoever had these. They actually painted these with a brush with, the tester's bottle paint, which means they'll strip really, really easily. So there's the T70, there's the GT40, the Chaparral.
I want to see the E car.
I'm sorry, what?
Can we see the E car? The Ford, it didn't look like a Ferrari, If you go some picture back.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
One more? This one?
No, one more. One more.
Yep.
On the right, doesn't look like it looked like a Ford G car.
Oh, but it's supposed to be a GT40. Yeah.
No, it's a
Yeah,
G
but-
car.
Oh, yeah, but it's a Lindbergh. I mean, they took artistic license like to the max. So let me
Okay.
just get back here. So let me go back. Now here's the Lola T70 from Tamiya, and this, believe it or not, was essentially like a toy. And believe it or not, guys, it still works.
Nice.
It's unreal. But if you go on eBay and look at these, if you can find one, they're really quite dear in the box. They're really quite expensive. And then we'll go to the, so there's, now believe it or not, the monogram Ferrari had all the parts. One of the mirrors came off, but it had the mirrors, the glass, the gearbox, all the way, phenomenal. Now, again, being Canadian, I told this person that, you could probably get $20 just for this car alone. And he went, I don't care. And then, and then when I bought it, he said, yeah, so how's $30 now? Done.
Oh,
Like, welcome to Canada. But this P4, actually the front looks not too bad. If you take a look at it, it doesn't have the glass, but that's
Oh.
okay.
no, it's the right size.
Yeah, and it's
Yes.
1/32 scale, but the back is
Yeah.
hideous. It needs
Oh,
a lot.
Jesus, what happened there?
Oh, that's
Well, exactly. It's like, hey, Bob, you got those
Jesus,
plans?
what happened there?
Exactly.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's like, hey, Bob, you got those plans ready? Well, I got everything done but the back. Oh, here you go. They just like rushed the back through.
I really like how the feet are sticking out the bottom of it.
No,
Yeah.
but they have that. They have
Box
that.
art.
That's awesome. I didn't notice that. That's great. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's really funny. I didn't notice that. Oh, thanks.
Well,
Oh, no,
it-
John,
In
that's
the
great.
real life, it's not right.
And there's
So
the
it is.
underside, because again, this was also designed as basically like a toy. But I mean, you could also, I guess, if you were, wanting to in the day, use a guide flag here or
And
something.
who
But I thought that
made that kit? Who
it was
made
made
that
by a
kit?
company. It was made by a company called Paramount.
Okay.
And there we're back at the beginning again. So that was the show, and there was quite a few people there, and it was a lot of fun. So if you have a chance, come to the next one, which I think is in March.
It's a long way.
Very cool. Thanks for going there and taking pictures and sharing them.
No problem.
All right, Gio, are you ready? Go for it.
So are you guys able to see? Yeah.
Hi.
Okay, so this is basically the interior of the Porsche Scalauto 963. So I finally managed to complete the car.
Nice.
Yeah, so actually it's kind of a bit more involved, or was more involved than I was expecting. So
Jesus,
the
there was cable.
yeah, so I finished installing the lights for the car rear and front and all the other marker lights.
Is it from Fula or
Say again?
is the kit, the light kits from Fula?
No, this is my own thing.
Okay.
So I put like 20 LEDs in this car. So this is basically once you start routing the wires as clean as possible. And so the next step was to feed the car on the chassis, which is still okay, but then I need to put a chip on it. So I started with the B2 chip, which is my favorite one because I can produce or make my own, fabricate my own light kits that work with this chip. But because the interior is it's very flat.
Jesus Christ, so lots of cables you have in the car. And
Yeah, yeah,
go to
but
the
that's-
front and the rear and into the instruments, and where do you have it more?
Yeah,
Everywhere.
actually, this is a part of the story. I mean, it gets even more interesting once I go ahead with this stuff. So the chip in that position will not work because again, there is a lot of interference with the interior. So then I thought, okay, maybe I can move the chip towards the back and then put the infrared LEDs on wires, but also in this position will not work. So what would work was this one, right? This position transversal, which is not ideal. And so I thought, okay, so if I'm gonna put in this position, then maybe I could try to fit a C chip, which will be sitting in the same kind of transversal position, but maybe I can put it back in the front, and that's what I did. Sorry, yeah. So this is a C chip from Slotted. As you can see, it's a much smaller as a footprint as the B chip. The main stuff that I don't like about this chip is the ribbon for the whole sensor, which is it's not that flexible, so you have to find a place where to put it. But also, it needs a ribbon for the light kit as well. And so as you can see, this is the kind of ribbon that I kind of you can use, and usually it works well when you put it with the slotted light kit. But I want to use my own light kit that use those kind of has two outputs, one for the rear, one for the front lights. And so what I use is this small board here that was produced by Dr. C. I don't know, Clive, I think, was operating, it was working on slot forms for a while. I mean, was one of the users, but then got into trouble. And unfortunately, he's not there anymore, but we're still in touch via email. So he sent me like 10 of these boards for free. So big shout out to him for doing that. And so with this board, basically, I can split the 6 pins that I have for the lights from the slotted chip to these 3 pins that are similar to the configuration for the B chip. And again, so far, so good. The chip here, so I had like this picture where I kind of destroyed a bit the chassis. So I kind of removed some of the ribs around this area in order to make the chip sit a bit flatter, because animal limiters here would be useful for lowering the car as much as I can. So this is the chip, and going crazy. So this was like a configuration that then I decided, okay, I'm kind of happy with that. So I routed the wires, the orange wire from the motor, using some ideas from Chris, using a bit of heat strings for keeping them in place. Then this is how I kind of select how to put this board over here. And is also like the way in which I kind of decide to mount the whole sensors on this ribbon on the front, going over the mount of the axle so that does not interfere. And I also was quite happy on the way in which I routed the wires for the front. So quite nice. So far, so good. So this basically is my version of my own light kit that, again, I said, like, has 2 outputs, one for the front lights and the one for the back, attached on the 3 pins. And so here was like my first mistake, because I started from the assumption that the order of these pins were similar to the order of the used for the B chip. So basically having like the common positive in the middle, and the rear ones basically, no, sorry. So the common positive here, the top one, then the middle would be the brake lights, and then the rear, or the last one, be the common negative pins, or outputs, which actually was not the case. So everything is installed, ready to go. Then I did a first kind of test, and then basically I discovered that not totally the order was wrong of the pins. So basically what I did, I connected basically the front to the brake settings and the rear, the brake lights to the front. But also my chip was not working properly. So which means it was outputting, I don't know, like I think 12 plus volts. So which means that the rear lights didn't work anymore, the brake lights. And I didn't know what was going on. I thought maybe I have a short somewhere. So after spending a couple of hours trying to figure out, I basically kind of made the assumption that they were all gone. So what I had to do was to remove them from the car, and I had to start again from scratch. Yeah, so you can think, yeah, how many swearing words I was saying. I mean, F, and beep, beep, beep going on. But I said, okay, let's do it. So the good thing is because I was using the GS IPO for going the wires and stuff, was pretty easy to remove them. And remember, there were also 4 of these LEDs sitting on the wing support, and they come out pretty nicely. So after I did all of that, then so this is basically the car after I kind of restore all the real lights. So before I got to that point, or before I removed the lights, I was really close to smash the bloody car. I said, I'm done with that. So I wasn't really close to that. I just basically took a break and went away. And so once I redid the kind of the real lights, and I said, okay, I need to kind of route the wires a bit better and organize them a bit better. So what I did, I kind of especially for the front one. So before all the, I don't know how many are there, like 20 plus wires that were attached to the connectors. So what I did, I kind of route them all through 2 wires and then connect to the connector over here. So it kind of give a bit more a better organization, let's say, and less things moving around. So these are, I ended up setting up the lights, and this actually is a new chip, of course, because that one was really buggy. So basically, the lights were on even if I was not selecting the lights on and off from the controller. Plus, once I kind of put the lights on, there was smoke coming out from the bottom of the chip. So the chip is still properly working. So there is no issue, but the light modules, I think, are buggered. So, but Slotted already is sending the replacement on the way. So did all of that, then was it just a matter of see how I can make it fit the body over the car. So this is kind of a bit of close up. And then these are finally the car complete on the truck with all the lights working. So these are a bunch of shots. Because once I was happy with it, then I start taking pictures like crazy. So these are kind of close up of the car. So the body is not sitting properly yet. I mean, I think it's the wire of the antenna that is kind of still interfering a bit, but it's as good. I mean, I could make a hole for the car. I put the wire, the antenna wire through, but unless I'm gonna raise this car in Suzuka or in Belgium, I'm not gonna do that for the price piece. And yeah, so just a couple of shots. I mean, using these are quite nice. I like the depth of field here. And yeah, so there are a couple of more, I think, the details that I would like to finishing the cars off, mainly like cosmetic, also like adding some brake discs, kind of making the rear tires all black. So because I'm doing these aluminum, so I'm going just for the pictures, and then adding a couple of antennas that are closer to the real car. And then basically I'm done. I mean, if I'm gonna raise this car for real, you know, these events, I might do Lexan cockpit in order to reduce the weight, because with all those wires, I think it's weighing that on. I didn't measure what is the weight, but anyway, I'm done with it, and almost, I would say. So last step. Maybe the other thing that John, I don't know if John is here, and also Tamara kind of breaking my balls a bit, is about the color of the chassis, because it's gray, it should be black. If I have to cover, if I have to paint it black, it means that I have to strip it out and paint it back and then put it back together. And I don't know if I have the energy for doing that. But so far, I mean, overall, I think it looks okay. I mean, kind of on the truck looks nice. I mean, okay, not just okay. I think it looks nice. And it's, I mean, was it the microphone okay or still kind of too far away?
Oh no, you're great.
Okay, cool. That's all.
Yeah, that looks gorgeous, dude. And I love you put the green lights in the window like that, make it easier to identify.
Well, yeah, so that is actually like the real car as well. So yeah. So that's in fact, I mean, yeah, I was looking at some video of this car running during night, and I could see. So from there was a camera inside the cockpit. So looking outside, I could see a green aura on, or kind of some bleeding of green lights over the wheel arches. I said, from where the hell is it coming from? So that's why at the beginning I thought I'm gonna put some lights inside here to kind of, you know, light it up green. But then looking at pictures, these are two small LEDs. So I already had to wire everything. I said, no, man, I'm gonna put those two LEDs there, and I managed to do that. Plus, they have also some kind of a light blue light inside the cockpit. So, and I'll put that to the third one. And so this brought the number of total LEDs to 20. So, which is the biggest one ever that I've put on a car. It's not that bad, to be honest. I mean, I think that the most important thing for doing this job is having the wire strippers that I use. So each of them, I think it's around $100 US. I have two, but they are, you know, they make your life so easy, especially when you're using the 36 AWG wire.
Yeah.
Makes life so easy, man. I mean, and you know, $100 well spent. Anyway,
Yeah.
sharing. Thank you.
Yeah. Good quality tools make a big difference.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Gorgeous.
Yeah, John says it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous.
Thank you.
I agree.
Good stuff. Thanks
I have
for
a
sharing.
serious case of the wants for that.
Gio. And Wayne had his hand up, but then his camera turned off. Do you still want to do a show and tell, Wayne? The other Wayne. A new Wayne. I guess he stepped away for a moment. All right, Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay.
Just
You're
a
there. Okay,
question.
Wayne.
Yeah, I am.
You've been on before, haven't you?
Yeah. Long time
Okay.
since I've been on, but
Been a while, yep.
I've just moved back down to Victoria from New South. So just a question. This is a SCP-1, but it's in a 2 case with a 20 amp. I mucking around pulling my track down and then connected it back up. I think I did it wrong and fried something in there. These
Done it
don't have
times
the
myself.
triggerable fuse that I can see.
Depending on how you hooked it up, it's dead as a doornail.
Yeah,
I've done it
that's
3
what I thought.
times, and basically after talking to Maurizio down in Los Angeles a few weeks ago, when I did the third one, I did it right there at the competition.
Oh, really?
He's not entirely sure why it happens, because the inline fuse is supposed to prevent
Yeah.
that from happening. And
and that's what I thought.
his speculation is that even though that's a fast blow fuse, they don't blow instantly. They still take a fraction of a second to blow. And in that fraction of a second before the fast blow fuse blows, it gets enough power to fry when it
everything
happens
else.
to me, those two black the MOSFETs where there's the hot glue
Yep.
gets so hot the glue was melted.
Yeah, that's what I was.
It
trying to
hardens as
see
soon as
if
it
that
cools
was
off. It's
melted or
hard
not.
again, but there was the smell and then the heat. It happens instantaneously.
Yeah,
there's
it did
no-
have some heat in the handle.
There's no you can't fix it, but I would
didn't
send
think
it
so.
over
You
to
can, you just have to change the MOSFETs.
you have to know what components and be able to swap the components. If you email Slot it and say, hey,
Yep.
this happened, personally, I think that they should repair it at no cost. You'd have to probably pay the postage. At the very least, I'm
Yep.
sure they'd be happy to tell you what the components are if you wanted to repair it yourself.
Yeah.
And then his suggestion for me for long term is go ahead and drop a smaller fuse in, because unless we're running
Yeah,
weight
maybe that-
cars, we really don't
Yeah.
need more than 5, 10 amp fuse.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a 10 amp fuse. So I'm not, oh, yeah. So, no,
You had a
it's
10 in there?
completely intact.
You had a
Yeah,
10 amp in
10
there?
Yeah, it was whatever was in it when I bought it. So that'd be a 10. I think.
20 amps.
20.
Yeah,
Maybe
mine
it's
said a
20.
Yeah, they come with a
Yeah, it
20.
would be. Yeah. Yeah, 20. Yeah. So
Hmm.
it's perfectly intact. So, oh, well. I will
I
do
replaced
that.
mine with a 15. I replaced mine with a 15 amp.
Yeah.
I bought a whole case of them on Amazon for like $10 of about, I
Yeah.
think it's almost
They're-
100 pieces.
Yeah, they're cheap as
Different,
chips. You can absolutely get a pile of chips for super cheap. Pile of fuses for super cheap.
Fuses. Yeah.
And then fuses, and then use the 10 amp, 15 amp, whatever. But yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you.
Yeah, no, I just thought I might as well ask. Thought it was dead.
At least now you have
Okay.
confirmation, right?
Exactly.
All right, Jim, you're
Thank
next.
you.
Okay, let's see here. I did get a new car last week, and it's one of these. We're gonna start running these in Northern California, and I've never had one before. I've been wanting to get one of these for a long time, so I got the Escort and put it together, more or less. I haven't got paint on it yet. That's my project for this week. But I did build the car out, the chassis out, and did quite a few things to it. Changed the wire. I didn't like the way the wire sat. It interfered with the body, and it was easier to change it out. The only thing I haven't done is remove all the semichrome from the gear. There is, you can see the tape on the chassis between the two plates. And adjust the gear mesh. It took about a 3,000 spacer on the between the gear and the uprights to get the gear out far enough so I get a nice good gear mesh. Glued and trued the tires. And car runs really smooth. It runs really quiet. I was very surprised. It runs just like pretty much like any other car. I haven't got the interior in it, so the interior will probably add a little bit of noise to it, but it had the body on it and ran great with those stock tires glued and trued. It was within about 2 to 3 tenths of a second of a Group C car. On granted a small track, but still the car was really good. So I was very impressed with
It's
it.
a sport,
They're pretty quick.
They always go very well. The Mark
I-
1.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
The Mark 1 always go very well,
Oh, the Mark 1 Escort. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I got the Escort because I liked the dimensions. It wasn't quite as small as an Alpha, and a bit smaller than the BMW. And I've been a Ford guy from way back. So decided to go with the Escort. I may add a BMW.
They go very-
Escort in the real life is always go very fast, and the small one in 124 or 132 go always fast. So it is.
Yeah,
So it is.
Yeah, well, yeah, looking at the BMW, and I did notice that they have 3 different body styles. And one of the body styles really looks on paper, from what I can tell, is it allows you to push the wheels out further because there's no overhang on the flare. It's just a straight
yeah,
flare.
it just has round flares.
Yeah. So that if I get the BMW, I may do that.
The BMW is Alpina, Schnitzer, or what?
Yeah, but there's 3 different body styles, not liveries,
Oh.
body style, and they're
Can you
very
show
different.
me, please? Can you show
I-
me, please?
Right now, no, but if you look on the websites, you can see one has very narrow flares, one has box flares, and one has flares, for lack of a better words, looks like it was done with sheet metal.
Oh,
So
it's
there's-
under
there's-
69, 71, and 72, I think. The wider one is from 72.
Well, there's 3 or I think there's 4 different white kits with a different body style again. So
Mhm.
they're literally a different body. I mean, the body's the same, but the flares are different. And it definitely looks like on
We
the
are just the flares
they
and the
were.
splitter under the
No.
nose.
But
Yeah,
in the
Opel
in the
Cadets
real
the same
life,
way.
it was in the real life it was 3 different from the beginning, and
Yeah, I
then
think there's- 4, as I recall. I don't remember.
3
Oh.
was it?
No, in Regal's, I think there's
Don't
4. There's
complain,
an
don't
A,
complain to BRM,
I
Christopher.
know,
there's an A, a B,
No,
a
in
C,
the
and
real
a D
life.
body style.
you know.
Jim,
Jim,
All right.
I
on
look at
the,
you, Jim. Okay.
Yeah,
on the
Dennis.
body mount, on the body mounts in the body, those little rubber cups,
Yep,
there are 2 different colors, right?
yep, put them on wrong once. Got them on right the
Okay.
second time.
Okay, what you
I
might
hate to say
find
this.
is that what you might find is that the car works better if you only use 2 screws. I use
I'll give
on
that-
the
I'll give that a
Alphas, I
try.
only run with the front screws. I don't have any screws in the back at all.
I'll give that a try and see. We haven't run our first race with these yet, but we've run them now on the track a couple times. Like I said, I've had one Revo slot car before, but this is the first of the
Yeah.
group 2 cars that I've
Now,
had.
the problem here is that the 2 body mounts on each side of the car are on 2 different pieces of the chassis. So if you
Right, one's
tighten
on
them
the-
up too much, it just gets rid of all the movement.
Yeah, I've definitely got float in the body, but I'll try to just go on the 2 screws and see how that works. Um,
You
Jim?
say that's on the Alpha. You've tried that, Dennis?
And the
I have-
Escort.
Oh yeah. Okay. I have an Alpha.
Okay.
I'm gonna try that. So you leave the front screws in, but take the back screws
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, and I snug them down.
I
Jim?
have,
The
I have
back
a,
posts still
I
have
have
the rubber.
basically,
Oh,
sorry.
Hold on, Phil. Go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah.
The back posts must still have their little rubber
Yeah.
caps on them, so that they
Okay.
sit
Leave
on
the
the
caps, but take off the
chassis,
screws.
but just leave the screws out.
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Go ahead, Phil.
Jim, what pinions on your Escort, mate? We bought a heap of these. We've bought 14 of them for the club, and we had to change the pinion on the Escort to match the other cars because the Escorts
This-
came with a 12 tooth on them.
Yeah, this one came with a 9, but when I ordered it, I ordered it from 132 in Tacoma, and I called Alan before it was shipped and asked him to make sure it either had a 9 tooth or the 9 tooth was included in it. So this
Yes.
one did have a 9 tooth on it. So I knew that problem. Yeah, so
That's all right. Yeah.
I called him
Like-
before he shipped.
Yeah, but they're a great car. We've got 14 of them set up down here, and they look like they're going to be a fantastic class. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
other
we're
question, one
running
question
them
I have
right
maybe
now.
for Dennis. I noticed in Revo Slot's catalog, they have a G25 compound tire. Do you know if that's the same G25 compound as slotted, or they're just calling it G25?
I don't
don't
know, but
know.
I would presume so.
Yeah. I've tried some
I guess
G25s and I didn't find them quite as good as the 30s. They
Well,
started
the
to
slotted
ball up a little bit.
G25s work extremely well on
Yeah.
our track, and not a lot of people in our area have figured that out yet, but they work extremely well. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna try a set of anyway, so, but
So
anyway, that's the Escort.
I have a theory on that. I don't think they're the same because those Revo Slot 25s are really soft. And with the heavier cars, I don't think the 25s work as well.
No.
This car is going to weigh what, 109 or 10 grams, right?
No, I think I haven't put the interior in it yet, but the interior is Lexan, so it's not a huge amount, but it was like 89, I think.
Okay. So, and what is your slot at weigh? Probably closer to 65 or 70?
65 or 70, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's something to
I
consider.
forget. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
but
I
the
know
other
we
thing
got
we're
that-
trying to do, the other thing we're trying to do here is right now they want to keep it with stock rear tires, which in theory, I don't have any problem with, but I don't know how we could tech that.
You can't. We gave
So
up.
that's, yeah, so my opinion, and it's not shared by other people in this area, is just go to open tires because you have to use Revo Slot tires anyway, because of the way they
Yeah.
fit.
Right.
And I did
Well, and
notice
you
you
know,
put
they
the
have an
tires on
air-
backwards too.
They have an air wheel as well.
Well, if we not allow the air wheel, just keep with stock wheels and then
Stock
allow.
car.
Again,
yeah.
how are they gonna tech it too? I guess they can touch it.
Well,
I
you could
guess.
see, you could feel the air wheels. That would be, but the rubber compound would be impossible to detect.
But hang on.
And I did
So
notice that
As far as I know, there is an air tire, but I don't know about an
It's an air
wheel.
tire. It's only the
But the
tire.
air wheel. The
Do they have an air
tire-
wheel for the
the-
sedans? I
The
know they
wheels
have an air
remain
wheel
the
for the
same. The
GTs.
tire
Stop
has a
talking all
molding.
at once.
The wheels are exactly the same. It's just an air tire. Dennis is right. Yeah,
Okay.
I've got some here, and you can, when you put them on the rim, you can feel the center of them's a lot softer. So we've banned them, but we just left open shore hardness because you can't police it. It's too hard.
All that being said, the stock tires worked really good. So
Yeah,
maybe
they
it's a
do.
problem that I'm anticipating that doesn't
It's
exist.
It's
Yeah.
a solution that doesn't have a problem.
Yeah. So that's the escort.
One,
We're in the middle of our Group 2 series right now. We just ran our second race of the Group 2 series, and they're all very even, great grip, great breakaway. You know, they don't slide too much. They don't roll over too easy. I'm glad that we stuck with stock tires.
yeah,
Gio had something to say?
yeah. So
I-
with what Dennis was suggesting, the having just the front screw. So I tried the same setup with Alpha as well. But you have to be careful how much play you have on the plate, because in my case, for instance, the rear tires were touching the body and was following the car performance. So I did the same, only from the front. So I tested several things, and the rear tires were touching the body and following the performance of the car. So be aware of that, how much play you want to have plates and so on.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
other
I've
thing
had
that
the
I
same
did in my car is the rear tires have been trued down quite a bit. So
Mine
they're a lot
are
smaller
I'm
than
using,
stock.
so I'm using just the stock out of the box, no gluing, nothing, and they perform very well on Scalatrix.
Yeah,
the
these were
only
glued and trued quite a bit.
The only outliers,
Do
one
you-
that does not perform that well, is the BMW, because it's very tall, so it's very tippy. I mean, at least on my R1, you need an extra control when compared to the other three now. I think, or four. I think
Yeah,
the
when I
first-
put this car on the setup block, it was about 80 thousandths clearance. And which is about a millimeter, I think, isn't it?
2 millimeters.
So I cut these tires down, so I've got about 40 thousandths clearance. I cut the tires down enough where I cut the ride height in half. The car works phenomenally well. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's the escort.
Jim-
I got one other thing
Jim-
in show and tell,
Jim,
and I'll
Jim, before you go on, Jim,
And Jim, what livery do you?
All right, Krister, sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. Krister, please stop talking or I'm going to mute everybody. We need to be a little bit more well-behaved when we figure out who's going to talk. DeJuan's been trying to get in several times. DeJuan, go ahead.
thank you. All right, I did review your video of the Group 2, and I just picked up one myself. I actually had to get the escort. I got the Opal, but yeah. But I was wondering, do you? I know you said glued and trued, and you talked about some semi-chrome polish for the gear mesh and all that stuff. Do
Yeah, you can see it
disclose
there.
those trade? Do you disclose all your trade secrets as far as branding and all that? Or you kind of keep it under hush hush?
when I do the full, the video you saw was just that introductory. When I do the full video, I'll talk about everything. That'll probably be up later this week or next week.
Okay, good enough. Thanks. That's all.
All right,
I do. I
Krister,
went
go
to
ahead.
mine.
Go ahead, Krister.
I want to ask, what livery are you going to do on the white kit?
I may do another Marlboro livery because that's easy to do and it came out really good for my Group C car.
Yeah.
But I
Okay.
haven't decided yet. It could be British Racing Candy Line Green again.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure.
That's good.
All right. I think we're ready to move on to the Bianchi. There we go. All right. New subject. Go ahead, Jim.
Got this the other day. Haven't had a chance to use it other than just play with it. So, it's pretty obvious what it does. Comes with a dial gauge, thousandth of an inch increments. You just put that in the trough, put the axle in the trough. It comes with that little black piece that slides onto your axle so you can spin it with your fingers. And you see the magnet there that actually holds the axle close to the or in that trough very well. If you're running titanium axles, probably wouldn't work. But it will work fine with all the steel axles we have. And then the dial indicator has a little plastic piece that's printed, it goes on top of it, and you just spin the sucker. And you can tell what the rollout is. And so I'm going to be doing a video on this as well, but it's a product that I just got the other day, and it shows promise. So we'll see what it does.
And that's
Do not
basically
leave it in a hot car.
Yeah, don't leave it in a hot car. So the purpose of this for those like me who don't understand fully is to basically, if you have any concerns about your axle, go ahead and slap it on the machine, slap it on this device, and then compare it to other axles and find one that is better, basically.
Yeah.
Find the
And
straightest-
Greg, you'll be, it will amaze you that I found the stop share button this week.
Good job, Jim. But you're gonna do a review. You're gonna do a video on that as well, like you did.
Yeah,
with
I'm going to
other-
review on that too. It looks really good, and for it's about half the price of anything else on the market, so it looks good.
Jim, what are you going to do if you find a bent axle or two?
Throw them away. What else you do with them?
I just wondered whether there was an axle straightening device that was in the.
Well, there are a couple of guys
Literally,
out
I'm
there
not
who
going to
make
straighten an
straighteners.
axle. You throw them away, and then you get new ones.
Yeah,
No,
it's a
you
better idea.
give them to the you give them to the competition.
Yeah,
You want some
axle fine,
axles?
There you go.
You want a bunch of free axles, Courtney? Although,
All right,
if you
thanks,
see
Jim.
axles, if you see axles for me on eBay, don't buy them.
All right, moving along. I think Dennis had his hand up. Go ahead.
Yep. Just an update on the alpha that I think I showed last week. It's now can you see that?
Yep.
It's
That
now
is cool.
complete. Came out really nice. Just a couple of photos just to show how it was done. It's a George Turner kit, and it's absolutely beautiful. He does a really nice job. And the only modification I made to the whole thing was that under the periscope or the scoop on the top, I actually drilled out and ground out as much resin as I could on the inside, because I didn't want all of that extra weight of resin up high. And that was the only part that was really a solid casting. The rest is pretty much, I'm not sure whether, I think it's a two-part or a two-part mold. So it's nicely thin all the way around, but beautifully done. Lovely little details, all in resin. There's no, apart from the vacuum formed screen, there are no photo etched pieces or 3D printed pieces. It's all resin, but it's a gorgeous little car.
Dennis, this is a Targa Florio car.
I didn't hear that. Sorry.
I say, Dennis, this is a Targa Florio car. From
Yes, this was the
67.
Giunti Galley car from the Targa Florio 67.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
67.
And I did it in those decals because that was what was supplied in the kit. I haven't ever seen one of these run in real life, so I wouldn't know one from another. I just know that it's a car that I've always liked. I like the look of the car from the very first time I ever saw one, and so this is the chassis that I put underneath it. Just one of my little brass, little brass chassis. Predator 22.5K ball bearing motor, NSR gears 1134, which is a little short. I could actually do with something a little longer. Ball bearings in the rear axle. The tires at the back are Revoslot 22 Shore, a set of tires that I had at home here that I glued onto some modified 1/24 scale magnesium wheels, which happened to be big enough to take on the inside to take the wheel inserts with very little modification. So I used another set up the front, and it has a solid axle across the front in the tube. Scale auto guide. That's about it. So that's me for today.
Very lovely car, Dennis.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Dennis, before you move away from that photograph,
yeah,
I'm very intrigued by the slot width and the way that the braid is located around the slot, the track braid, and the way that
Okay.
your braids in your guide appear to miss the conductors.
Yeah, not really. I mean, yeah, it's that I do tend to bend them out a little bit, but they catch enough of the braid that they don't give me any trouble.
I can imagine that's quite a large distance difference between the
Mhm.
braids in the track and the braids
Yeah.
in your guide.
Yeah,
Dennis,
the
can I
track
ask-
the track's made more in along commercial specifications than
Yeah.
anything else when I did it. So, but I've never found that it's a problem.
Cool.
Can I ask Dennis, what is the brand of the body? Is it a Lexan body or is it something else?
It's a resin body. It comes from George Turner in the UK.
In England? In England?
Yes, in England,
American?
George Turner models.
Yeah.
You'll find him on eBay. Not on eBay, on Facebook. You'll find him on the internet. George Turner models,
Mm.
all 1/32 scale.
Very lovely car.
Thank you.
How heavy
That's
is
me
the
for today.
Mike, go ahead.
how heavy is the body? Do you have any
Oh,
idea?
I don't remember. I didn't ever weigh it. It doesn't worry me much because I
Right
know
now.
that the
Okay.
chassis is going to be
Just-
heavier than the body anyway. The whole car weighs about 78 grams, somewhere around there.
Okay,
Not bad.
all right.
I
So
don't recall.
with that chassis, that's pretty reasonable. Yeah.
Oh yeah. The whole car weighs 84 grams. So the body's less than is around 20, I suppose.
Yeah, like you said,
Okay.
there wasn't a lot of thick spots for you.
No,
to
there's
grind
not a
down.
lot of thick resin apart from the periscope, and I did hollow that out.
All right.
The interior is, the driver, that's all resin as well, but it's not particularly heavy.
I've been thinking about doing a couple of his other ones, and I was just curious if they were really, outrageously heavy or anything.
No, they're not. They're very nice. I was very happy with this one. I'm certainly going to revisit his website and have a look at a couple of others. I know there's another Alpha T33, the coupe, that I'll probably have a go at.
I
at
have
some
that
stage.
in 124
Yes.
and they very
That
light.
coupe's really, really pretty too.
Yeah, it's a pretty car. And I do remember seeing one of those run at Kyalami in 65 or 66, I think.
The coupe?
Yeah.
Nej, later on, 68.
Oh,
Yeah.
it was.
Krister's giving you a run for your money, John, with all these date corrections and
Oh, yeah,
manufacturer corrections and stuff. You could take a break and just have Krister on. Every time somebody says something wrong, Krister will be there to make sure they got it right.
Well, why do you think I'm drinking now? Who cares?
There you go. You can relax. Krister's here.
No, man, Greg, I'm a son from a race driver.
No, I know.
Came
You have.
over to Sweden. and
I'm
race
not
with
saying you
them.
don't have the knowledge. You clearly have the knowledge. And you're here to make sure we get the knowledge too. So thank you for that.
No, I know. Of course.
All right, let's move on to another topic. Thank you for showing that, Dennis. That was beautiful as always.
welcome. Thank
And
you.
Garth has something to share. I'm guessing it's guide related. Go ahead, Garth.
Yeah, I got a little bit of an update on the rate guide project. Share this baby here.
Got
This
it.
is I got a bunch of photos of the different versions. Okay, this is what we call the 1B. Okay, and it's I don't know if you guys have shown this before, but this has got it's going to be SLS nylon printed. okay, and it's a snap-in guide. And one of the features of it is it's got this skeg here on the bottom, okay, that the blade width is 1.5 across its major area, but in this little 1.5 millimeter by the length of the blade, it pops out to 1.9 millimeters on both sides, okay? And that's one of the features, and that shows you, I think you can see this, that's what the skeg looks like, okay? All right, and then I used a modeling that shows it like it's nylon. Okay, and the other thing that this has is it's got a screw hole in the top of it. Like Alan Wilkerson mentioned a couple weeks ago, that you need to have a little screw hole to put a set screw down in there to press the guide, the tension the guide.
Doc, you sent me a PDF of this drawing during the week, asking me to forward it to Alan. And in fact, I managed to bump into him when I went to a slot car race last weekend, and I showed it to him in person.
Okay.
He was like, that's how I wanted it, with a little hole in the top so that you can stick a grub screw in there.
Well, it was his idea. That's why I sent it to you. Okay. And then the other feature of this is, let's see if I can get this to go, is all of these guides on their braid tower have been cut down a little bit as per Mike Mauer's observation that they were a little too tall. So they've been cut down slightly. And then I carved out the back of each one of these so that there's a little spot for the braids to come out the back. Okay. That's just a shot from the top again. You see the different features of it. This shows you the bottom. There's a skeg. And then again, we got a little slight chamfer on the back of the braid slot. So that's the first one. That's 1B. This is 2B. It is exactly the same as the 1B, except for it's got a 5 millimeter high post in it for screw. And once again, both of these guides are designed to go into a Slot.it car. It shows it from the front. There's the top. See the hole, and all the rest of the stuff is exactly the same. Again, we're going to call on this 2B. Okay. All right. This is number 3 model. Well, this is actually model 13 is what I call it. And it is similar to the other two. It's got the same post on it. Only someone told me that they wanted to have a deeper version of it. So this is instead of the other guides are 7 millimeters deep. This one is 8 millimeters deep. It's got the skeg in the same exact positioning from the underneath of the plate. The front of it is a little different because of the different blade depth. So this changes a little bit, and the back changes a little bit. But it's very similar, but it's 8 millimeters deep. Again, there's another shot of it. You see it's the same with the screw-in version. Okay. This one is the newest version. Okay, this one was inspired by one of the guys that came on the live stream that asked for a guide with side exit. Okay, a short nosed front end, side exit wires. Okay, and so it's basically the same on the underneath. The blade is the same as the first two guides. It's got a screw in 5 millimeter high post on it. And the features of it are, you see, this has got a little hole is for a stripped and twisted wire. The outside part of the hole is for the silicone jacket. So the silicone jacket has a place to go into, so it's not just hanging by the wire. And the front of this has been shortened way down and carved way off, so it's very, very small. This one we call the Model 77. The top of it is covered up. Okay, the braid goes in from the bottom. And the way it works is the braid goes into the bottom. These little bosses are for a 2 millimeter by an M2 by 2 millimeter set screw. Okay. And so what you do is you strip the wire, twist it, make sure you got the right length of the whole cavity here. And then you push the braid in from the bottom all the way in, make sure it's good and square. You push the wire into the hole, okay, and either go in front or behind the braid, and then and probably would help to have the set screw almost in place. In other words, almost engaged, because it's a little fiddly. So
Greg, Garth, why did anyone want the grub screw access from the back and not from the front of the guide?
because I'm me. How's that for an answer?
And because he said he wanted a very short nose.
Yeah, short nose. The whole idea is there's a lot of compromises here, because the idea was to make it for a low profile nose car. Okay. And that's what was asked for. And then this is just my interpretation of it, but you can see it's got a similar braid slot, but the carve out for the ferrules or screws are not in it. Okay. And then got a couple other photos of this. Okay. Now this is a close up of from the bottom into the braid slot. Okay. And in order for me to make the screw boss work, I had to kilter it off center from the braid slots. So if you look at let me go back one here. If you look at the braid, this guy here, you see that the braid slot is kind of this area, and this is pushed out just a little bit because I didn't want to have this when it rolls around to have it has to have clearance for a washer or a little spacer. Spacer, yeah. And so back to this hole, that is where the screw, the set screw goes through, coming from this direction. That's where the wire goes in, and obviously this is where the braid goes in. And that's another close up of the boss and where the set screw would be in, and this is the 2-position hole for the screw guide. Okay, and then again you see the nose off on this. And an alternative to this was when I designed this at first, I had the slot coming through the top, and then I said, the idea is to try to keep it clean and completely free of any problems with clearance. So I closed off the top bit, just something I thought was the way to go. This is just yesterday, the Iowa division printed up a resin copy of it, not more than a couple hours after I sent it to them. So this is the first version of the prototype of it in resin, okay, which was pretty phenomenal. Here's a shot of the top of these. These are resin printed. You see, it's got the blade guides in there. And you see the bosses. Okay. Next photo is these were all just shots that I requested from when Jeremy printed it. And this is the first time he stuck a braid in there. And he was swearing at me up and down about how shitty the whole design was because it was so hard to get the stuff in there. But I said, yeah, but there's some compromises here. So there's another shot. This is a later shot of showing the idea behind the outer hole there, so that I didn't want the wire to be just hanging out in the air, because I thought if it flexed too much on the wire, it would break at that point. So that's what that little countersink, I guess, would be for, is to try to get this so that the silicone jacket fits right in there. And that's shows you the set screw, and then he's got a braid in it. Okay. There it is in a car. I asked him to put it in the car for me. So he put it in a Ferrari 312P. And this, keep in mind, this is all really first level prototype stuff, you know what I mean? And we're just, so this is kind of the idea behind it, okay? It's got no clearance here. The wires come in from the side, okay? There's another shot of it from the top. You see this top part is very small, very thin on the CAD file, and because of the resin, it's starting to break through here a little bit. Okay, again, this is going to be a nylon printed guide, but you kind of get the idea of what it was behind. And like, it was inspired by the guy JB from the live stream that showed up. There's another shot of it from the front. You see the wires in the guide. Another shot yet. Okay. So you kind of get the idea. This one looks like the wire might be pulling out there a little bit. Okay. So this might need a little bit of work. And I even thought maybe that these bosses are going to end up kind of at an angle, a slight angle, so that the screw still works, but it's another the whole thing is just a plethora of compromises to get it. So
that looks like the wire entries are so low that they interfere on the chassis.
Well, they don't. Thank you, Wayne.
It's a compromise. Okay. All right. That's that one for now.
45-degree angle on the grub screw might lend itself to better access.
And it might push the wires in to where you want them.
Exactly.
It wouldn't even have to be 45 degrees. You could go as little as 10 or 20 or
yeah, and that would make it a lot easier to put it. You got to realize that probably you're going to need to spin this, or you're going to need to have it wired before you put it in the car. You know what I'm saying? It's just again, it's a whole lot of compromises just to get it so that it's small. I was trying to make a guide that did what, it had side wire exits on it, okay, but it didn't have screws in the front and or screws in the top or any other junk on it. So it looks like a guide and feels like a guide, and I guess it is a guide, or we'll soon know. Okay. All right, this is the next one, and this is the first time this has been shown. This is what's called the lead sled. Okay, and this is a product of Jeremy Colbert. Okay, and it is a tungsten impregnated guide. Okay, and you see it in a second here. You see it's got all the trappings of the Outlaw guide as far as the blade shape and so on and so forth. This one's got a very tall post on it, and it's got the cutoff tower, and the other features of the other stuff is on it. Okay, you see the lead sled part of it. You see its name is the lead sled, and there's 3 holes in it and the width of the blade is 2.35. Okay. Wow. And it is but it's only 2.35 in the middle of the blade, and you'll see that in one of the photos here. Okay, because the blade is very contoured on the front part and on the back part. Okay, and these are designed for tungsten rods to fit into. Okay, and they go almost the whole length of the guide. This is a wireframe version of it. You'll see how the holes go through, and they come way up into the front. And Jeremy has printed this, okay, in several different versions, okay, in resin, and I think he might even erased it once or twice. He can talk about it after I'm done here. That's kind of what it looks like. 3 rods.
What diameter are the holes, and what size of tungsten rod have you been able to buy?
Yeah, we find tungsten rod that fits it. It's I can't remember what it is, like 0.040 or something.
Yeah, it's the holes as the CAD file says are 1.2 millimeter diameter, and the rod is 1 millimeter. Okay, tungsten rod. Okay, and the idea is that 3D printing, no matter what it is going to have some issues with it, in its swelling or changing or whatever. You know what I mean? So we're trying to get it so that you can get that rod in there. This is a thing showing the shape from the bottom. You see this part of the blade is what's 2.35. This is nosed off with a huge radius. This is I think it's like a 50 millimeter radius, believe it or not. And back here, it's like 80. So it's thinner in the back and thinner in the front, but that's kind of what the braid or the blade width is, 2.35. And that was we think.
So which plastic will that run in?
It won't. So that I took the dimensions off Slot Invasion. They go 2.35 on their thickest guide. So my thought here was, just for a goof, let's try a 2.35 and see what happens. And when it came out perfect. I mean, everything fit. I was able to, I was like, why don't we just start with 2.35? And then if we can start working backwards to get smaller if we have to. But right now, the thickness matches the Slot Invasion. That was my.
I have a question. So have you put that guide into your Scalextric Sport Track yet, Jeremy?
It's never going to fit. It's not made for Scalextric Sport Track. So it's not.
I get it.
Just like a Slot Invasion is
Hold
gonna chunk around.
So the answer was no. It's not meant to fit there. So the question that I had is, have you considered, or first of all, is it necessary for the tungsten rods to be entirely hidden? Like, is that the point?
No. You can still see them out the back. There's no way to cover up the back.
So then my next question is, Garth, give me a second. My next question is, if it's not important to obscure the nature of the guide, then you could hourglass the blade so that it's thinner at the center and thicker at the front and the back. Yes, you'd be able to see the tungsten rods where it hourglasses, but the tungsten rods would still be held in by the top and bottom of the hole and the back and front of the hole. Yeah. So like, even if the whole center part goes down to 1 millimeter in total thickness for those 1 millimeter diameter tungsten rods, they would still be held in securely above, below, and front and back, just not at the sides.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We'll take a look at that on version
2. I have 2 things to say. Okay. First off, I think that we're going to print up a nylon plug for those 3 holes, okay? So that you can just put a little nylon rod in the back and cut it off, okay? If you want to, okay? So that's the first part of it. The second part, it can be
light, it can be normal, or it could be heavy, basically.
Right. Second part of it is, it has not been printed in SLS nylon yet. And I think, based on some of the other guides and stuff that we've made and printed, that this blade width can come down to 2 millimeters if we want to, as long as it's nylon printed. Okay, that's my guess. Okay, you know what I mean? And but Jeremy it's basically a wood guide, right? When you say, Jeremy,
yeah, no. I get it. But I've run some wood guides in my Scalextric Sport Track. It's the strangest thing when it works, and I'm always surprised when one doesn't work. I'm partially surprised when it doesn't work, but I know why it doesn't work, because it's too thick for Scalextric Sport Track. But I have some wood guides that still go around my track just fine. So if the front is properly tapered, like you have, and the center is hourglassed, like I suggest, I wouldn't be surprised if this worked in a Scalextric Sport Track. I would also not be surprised if it didn't. I'm just saying that this might make it doable. But yes, I understand that it's designed for wood track, Carrera, Polycar, the things with properly sized slots.
And it was,
yeah,
I will tell you, And Jeremy.
I've
can-
had wood
can-
guides work, like you said, that the thinner ones are the ones with a dolphin kind of nose on them. But
I have a legit wing car that goes around my track.
no, I know it's possible. I'm just saying I wanted to get this started, get it ready for wood track, because the most competitive drivers are going to be wood track racers who want to upgrade, guys like Courtney who look at it and think, oh, I could use that. See, but so I thought the most popular right now, the Slot Invasion or the Franken slot, those are the most popular with our wood track drivers. They love them because they're so thick that you don't got to worry about them popping out. So I thought if we start with that, it's going to make it easier to get the rods working. That's a great idea you had about the hourglass thing. Maybe, like I said, maybe the next we can start taking a look at that, but it was hard enough just to get it to this point, like in a working prototype. So
it was,
we're getting there.
From a design standpoint, the rod, the size of the rod, and Jeremy is the dream.
I haven't had trouble getting my rod in anything. Now all of a sudden I've spent like 3 months and it's been a disaster. So
I will tell you that it was a bitch.
Look how thin these rods are. They're insanely thin. They're like pencil lead thin.
How thick what's the diameter of the rod?
1 mil.
1.0 or I think, or whatever, they're very close to 1. Because I started with 3/32, but that was just too big. And like, I just had to find the smallest tungsten I could. And then
You can
even
get,
then,
you
it
can
only,
get tungsten HO axles in 0625.
yeah, I know you can get super small. I've tried, this is the best compromise I could find for weight, because when you get too small, it just doesn't add any weight. And you're like, why bother doing this then? So
How much weight does it add? That would-
3 to 4 grams is the top. But here's the thing, that was just on my like postal scale. I ordered a milligrams scale that'll come tomorrow, so I'll get more specific. I want to know exactly how much and if the effort's worth it or not. So
3
I
or
don't
4
know. I know
grams
Dennis
is
is. Well, I know Dennis has done this for a while. He makes professional ones, but I don't know how much weight I've never had one of his, so I don't know how much weight it actually adds compared to just a regular one. Like, is 2 grams good? Well, people go, oh, that's 2 grams.
2
That's
grams
great.
is
Or they
a
go,
lot. If you could get
Is
2
it?
grams
Okay.
in there, it would be a massive amount.
Okay,
He,
great. I know for sure I've got 2
Jeremy-
grams in one. So, all right.
Jeremy actually has printed this in resin. Okay, and it works.
Yeah, I've got ones that work. but I
is,
haven't raced them yet.
scary if you think about it, because those are pretty long holes in there, so.
And Jeremy,
Yeah.
when you drive a heavy guide, can you feel it?
I haven't drove it yet because the guys in my club watch this show. Hi guys, and so I can't drive it. But one day I'll goof around and I'll put it in something. But right now it's in resin, and I don't feel confident driving it around in resin. I'll break something, and pieces will go flying. So once I get a real one made, I'll give it a try.
Okay, so I just.
Is this because resin will just snap?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you axle lock and turn your tires too far, the front will just snap right off. And I can make it a flexible resin, but then it's too flexible to then it's not very good at when you're driving. So I just haven't found the right combination of what I need for strength, but also give. So I'll get there.
So what you're suffering from is the inability to actually test anything. It's all go to a race meeting, isn't it?
I've been testing everything. And like I have guys in the club that I know break stuff easily. I've been giving them free parts and they've been breaking everything. And I go back and adjust Jim's laughing. I go back and adjust my formula and I keep track. I've got a little spreadsheet. I'm keeping track of my formulations. I'll get it eventually. But right now, the best thing to do is order it from a professional company that makes a much better product than I do. That's what Garth's been doing. So I'm prototyping it. We'll make it finished when we get the professionals making them.
Yeah.
It's quite the, Wayne, it's quite the accomplishment, because, he
I agree.
dreams up, or I dreams up something, I do the CAD file, I send it to him, he lives 3 states away from me, I send it to him, inside of a couple hours, the guy's sending me photos of this, finished resin prototype, so it's like,
Dude,
wow.
you need to get yourself a 3D printer, because it just doubles in its fun, it's an amazingness when you design it and you print it and you have it all within hours.
I think Jeremy, he's better than the 3D printer.
Greg's trying to break up the Beatles here.
I got another question for
Okay,
you.
Yoko, settle down.
The 3D printing is fun when you just download models and print them. Sure, it's fun, but it's fulfilling when you design it and print it and have it. It's a whole different kind of part of the hobby. Jeremy knows what I'm talking about.
It's a whole new hobby.
Okay,
That's
I
true.
got another question for you about the guide. Have you thought about putting a magnetic material in one of those cavities?
No, like what? Like what kind of, what do you
Like a
think?
magnet?
If you have magnetic braid, something that would,
Or Scalextric track, it's got rail inside the slot.
or a Scalextric's track on, yeah, something that would attract the guide to the magnet, the
Oh,
guide
okay, I
to
see what you're
Guide
saying.
in the slot.
No, why do I always go to you, Jim? Why are you always evil? I know you're always, you've always
Well,
got something going.
The first object, okay, Jim, is to try to make a poor man's tungsten guide so that other people can get their hands on it, okay? And it's a guide. So we're, we got to get to that point, so.
now that was half facetious.
I like Jim's
I think
idea. I
that-
think that's brilliant.
I think
agree.
it's a great
Find the
idea.
magnet.
Jim is an
I
evil
think-
genius, and I love him for that.
Yeah, I'll start looking, Jim. I'll let you know what I find.
You know what? You can get disc magnets that are as thin as 1 millimeter, but they're
That's what I
about
was thinking, a little puck, if I slid a little puck underneath the plate inside
Yep.
and then sealed it. Who
Yep.
would know?
You
I would
guys,
think
All
that
right.
would cause quite a bit of frictional, quite a bit of drag.
Yeah.
yeah, it depends. There's metal on both sides. It depends on the distance and what's between the magnet and the. You'd be
Yeah.
surprised. There's a little bit like a long time ago for Scalextric Digital to get the flippers to touch the rail, which is how the flippers get power is to touch the rail. One of the guys who was experimenting with things said, "Oh, if you put a magnet in the flipper, then it'll have just enough attraction to touch and stay touching the rail. And then when it switches the other way, it'll have just enough attraction to touch and stay touching the other rail. So you always get the correct polarity when you have a magnet in the flipper." And there's other reasons why that was not a popular thing. But if you get the right size magnet in the guide, maybe there'll be just enough to help keep the guide in the slot, but not increase the drag too much.
Hang on.
And it needs to
You're
be an
looking at-
electromagnet. Check.
You're
It
looking,
needs
if you're
to be
looking at,
electromagnet.
What, Jim?
It needs to be an electromagnet, so it'll go through tech.
Oh. All right, Dennis, I know you're dying to say something.
if you're running on Scalextric track where the sides of the slot are steel, now the magnet is going to attract itself to one or other side of that, right? So it's not giving you any downforce at all. It's only giving you some sort of side force. If you're running that thing on a track that has magnetic braid, if you have anything at all, it's going to lift the guide out of the slot because it's going to try and lift the guide up to the point where it's attracted, where it's at its closest to the magnetic braid. So I don't know that either of those are a particularly good idea. And then my final comment on this whole thing, as someone who has made thousands of weighted guides, is most of the rule makers out there now are wise to this, and in just about every proxy and in a lot of the racing series, weighted guides are banned. So there is a diminishing return in terms of the amount of work that you might want to do in order to develop this. Sorry, but that's the way it is.
The voice of realism. It's a good thing.
If I know it's not happening, but if Slotted made a weighted guide similar to this, would it still be banned, or would people adopt it eventually? I mean, you have to start somewhere. Right now, I didn't even know about weighted guides until a year ago when I saw yours. So it's like, I think it's just once it becomes accepted, then you
Once
can
it's
get more people
homologated,
doing it.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was
Personally, it worries me because, you're getting to the point where all of a sudden, and this is what happened in retro racing and other forms of 1/24 scale racing, a tungsten weighted guide is double the price of any other guide. But as soon as everybody perceived it as being required in order to go fast, everybody spent the money, which meant
like a
that there
wood
was
guide.
no, there was no longer an advantage to having it. Everybody was just out of pocket by another $10 per car.
But
And,
like what I was
yeah.
saying, like that's kind of like the wood guides right now. Like you can race your car fine without a wood guide, but everybody who races on wood track buys a wood guide.
Yeah, but there is I suppose you're right. There is a difference. In some cases, like Scalextric cars, they're almost unraceable without a wood guide.
Thank you, Dennis. I still love you. You're still on my Christmas list, but I gotta, yeah, you're right on one thing. It's on.
But to be fair, a wood guide is only maybe a buck or two more than a regular guide versus,
Correct.
$5 or $10 more for a regular guide.
Right. I'm just saying things get
Slippery
adopted.
slippery slope.
It's slippery slope. Thank you. Yes.
And how much was the tungsten 1mm rod, Jeremy?
There you go.
How much is the rod?
Yeah.
I haven't priced them out individually. I bought them in a pack, so I'll get everything
It's really-
parted out for the next
It's really,
time.
it's really
It's not
cheap. I've bought it for other
Yeah,
uses.
it's not
It's really
expensive at
cheap.
all.
You see, the only way I can find it to purchase is the same way that Jim gets it. I believe you use tungsten rods for electric arc welding. The electrode in a TIG welder. Is that Is that the same stuff, Jim?
That's where I buy it for ballast. And you can get much more precision if you go to an HO shop, get an HO rear axle that's out of tungsten. So that would be more precise, but you don't need precise for ballast.
No. So that's the only, and I've never actually sunk the money in to buy it because there are always a pack of 6 and that's far more than I need. And I just want someone to put one in my hand. I just want to find a guy that welds who's dipped it into his weld
welding
pool.
supply
Go to your local welding shop.
Yeah,
There's
that's the
welding shops
thing.
all over.
They have different
Manchester
diameters.
plenty.
Different,
So TIG welding rods are what was suggested to me via a comment on the YouTube video from when I was saying I want cheap but straight axles for my project. And I'm like, well, how expensive are they? How straight are they? How consistent is the diameter? Blah, blah, blah. And you get what you pay for. You can get a pack of 10 tungsten rods for $10 that are like 7 inches a piece, right? So that's 20 axles, basically. If you buy specifically 3/32 tungsten, rods, they're going to come in at 3/32 point something something something, or 3/31 point something something something. They're the tolerance is low, so you're either going to need to ream your bushings or whatever your application for. They're not going to be precise, but you're going for cheap. If you're going for precise, you might as well go and buy a precision made, sold as slot car axle, like Jim was saying.
Yeah.
If you want to hold one, Amazon, $10 for a pack of 10. There you go.
Well, the only problem with tungsten is it's hard to cut.
Yeah, but that's what
And-
Dremels are for, right?
When you
It's hard to
cut it,
cut
it
with a
tends to
Dremel.
break and splinter because it's
it's
cast.
brittle.
It's not. Yeah.
Good to know.
A guy that I know who does this for a living in HO racing says you should really cut tungsten with a diamond cutoff wheel, and that gets expensive because it dulls the diamond wheel real quick.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to cut through it, if you cut it about 2/3 and then snap it with your fingers, it just snaps. It doesn't bend. So
Yeah.
you can do it, but it is hard to cut.
Good thing I haven't bought a pack yet. I'll figure something out. Anywho, I think we're ready to do some Club Corner, and so raise your hand for Club Corner. Jeremy, you got Club Corner stuff, or did you have something else?
I had show and tell. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Running behind. Okay, let me share my screen here. So with Garth's help, of course, I've created these. These were a solution looking for a problem. And what happened was in our club, somebody decided they wanted to run the modern F1 cars from NSR, Scale Auto, and Polycar, Polycar. But the Polycar has the FF motor in it, and the other cars just crush it. So I got to thinking, and then Garth got to thinking, and he came up with this idea, and this just now snaps in an FF motor to where your FK 180, FC 180. Oh, wrong way.
FC1.
So,
Man, I'm hungry
So-
now.
Thank you. I was doing some tenderloin eating here in Iowa. So anyway, it just snaps in, and then it has, if you could, let me stop sharing here. Just because I didn't get enough good pictures it's got the same holes in the back where you can mount the motor to the little adapter. And so far, depending on which brand of FF motor you have, like the Scalextric ones, they must cut them off at the perfect size, because it fits, just drop in, you put a pinion on there and you're good to go. But like the MT Racing one there, his were a little longer, so I'm gonna have to trim that a little bit. I don't know if every manufacturer on FF. What's that?
Are we talking about the arm? Are we talking about the armature length there, not the
Yeah,
tail
if you look at the armature, how far it goes past the axle point.
Yeah.
But the Scalextric one does not. They must cut theirs a little shorter. Theirs are perfect, but then they've got the knurling on there. So I've got a second problem to come up with. But for
And
now,
then the polycar ones are even way shorter than that.
are they? See, I don't
Yeah,
have the polycar. I've got the Scale Auto. And so I just wanted to, that's why I pulled it out of mine to see how it would run. And I'm going to find out how it runs. I know the gearing is weird in the polycar as well. So I don't know how.
Can you show us the slotted pod from the bottom? Have you got the motor right down low?
The slotted pod, the plastic or the resin is directly flat on there, but you'll notice the motor itself is lifted maybe a millimeter or so.
So have you got an offset as a result of that? Because you're running a 1 millimeter offset motor pod there with the motor.
You could,
lower.
yeah. I was talking to Garth about this. Like right now, the bottom, the little plastic where the I can't see it. That little plastic goes down to that cradle and it doesn't let it offset. But if we wanted to, we can reposition that so you could do offsets in here. But I didn't worry about it because I almost think nobody's ever going to put an FF motor. If you've got a good motor, why would you switch to an FF? So I just wanted something different in case somebody does want to do something weird like that, because I didn't see any
Why
other...
would you switch to an FF? Because it's a hell of a lot lighter than an FK.
Yeah.
And,
but don't you lose
Professor
too
Motor
much?
has a 37,000 RPM version of that. And Scale
Yeah,
also
that
have a
one is
26,000
great,
RPM version of that.
See, I'm just always used to guys wanting the more torque so they can have the top speed and drop the gears, but I was just worried that the FS were just not enough
You
torque.
can
but-
generate torque at the wheel, Jeremy, through gear ratio.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think the FF is the future. I do think there is
Really?
a future for FFs in slot cars. Yes, I do.
So should I keep working on this and unless
I
if
just
you
think
guys have seen, I'll send you a
the-
couple
the-
sometime.
the
But
tiny
if
light
you've seen
motors
other
with the high
pods like this,
power.
I'd like to know. All right, that was my show and tell.
Where it's allowed, I think the FF is a cracking. It's potentially he's got cracking potential. There just aren't that many motors out there that are configured correctly for slot cars yet. I know Courtney's got something that absolutely flies with FF in it.
Yeah, and
regarding
Scale Auto
opinions,
makes it.
Go ahead, Courtney.
I'm sorry, Scale Auto makes an inline pod already for the 050 motor.
God dang it. All right.
The slot car
It's like what?
manufacturer start specifying the correct configuration and getting that ordered up from the manufacturer, and then
all
start sticking
over
it in
for one. I
more
couldn't
cars,
find
and
one.
It'll get widely adopted.
You got to ask the right people, baby.
Yeah, but is it for their cars or does it fit in other cars?
It's the same as a slotted pod. It's the same configuration.
Oh, okay. So yeah, like mine goes in an Inco if you want it. I guess that's the benefit. Any cars you want.
I was
take
gonna
delivery
say
of the
regarding
blockade.
I was gonna say regarding the knurling on the motor shaft from Scalextric, you can either shave it off with a file while it's spinning, or just push the gear on anyways. A brass or a plastic gear will push on just fine. It's just ruined for any other motor.
Yeah.
You have to be careful with the recommendation, Greg, because I've actually tried that and split a brass pinion. So it can go wrong. Yeah, it's
Is
split.
that one of those AliExpress pinions though, or a real one?
I don't know what it was, but it tried to ram it onto a Scalextric motor without taking the nail off. Wrecked it.
Wow. Hey, good to know. I've never tried it, so thanks, Wayne. That's actually helpful information. Not implying that other information out of your mouth is not helpful. Sorry. Anyways, moving on. Gio has his hand up. Go ahead, Gio. Unmute.
Can you guys see?
Yep.
Okay,
Guess what,
so
folks?
what?
Gio went racing GT3.
Yeah, so actually it's a bit more than just a GT3. By the way, a comment on your comment, Wayne. The future for slot car is gonna be brushless motor, not the FF. I think there is
Wow.
much more potential on that because it's gonna be much smaller. If people come up with the nice pods, I think you can stick these everywhere, and you don't need the crazy speed. I mean, you can tame them. So yeah, I think that's where I can see a lot of potential. Anyway,
There might be a future for that in the racing scene, but I don't think the mass production slot car will adopt the brushless because it's just too expensive.
We're talking about the future.
Okay, could be. Yeah, I mean, not maybe.
Right, but now we're talking about. Now we're letting Gio talk about his GT3 racing. Go ahead.
Yeah. So okay. So basically, I don't know. I mean, I've been like testing some new release in terms of software from Slotted. So particularly, so they are kind of moving from Oxygen 3.0 to Oxygen 4.0, and this means that there is an increase, fourfold increase of the bandwidth communication between the controller and the cars and the dongle, but it's pretty involved. So the purpose of these arrays of that night was to have some people testing the new software. But before I did that, I kind of say, okay, let's do our normal racing, but instead of doing the 4 races, we do 3 races, and then we switch to Oxygen 4.0 with another set of plus. So anyway, so this was the lineup of cars for the night. We had, so I don't know, I think that this new car from James has already been introduced a couple of weeks ago. The rest, basically, everything it's more or less everyone more or less the same, racing the same car. So we did the usual thing like practice, and then we moved into set up the line up for the qualify. Qualify was a bit of a mess, so both Alex and Jan kind of ended up on the main straight, going out of the last corners of basically reporting a very quick lap. My lap was legit, but still not as quick as the other ones. And because I cannot delete, I don't know what what is the quickest lap, or I mean real quickest lap without these coming off. Then I just decide to go with what we have there. And so after this, basically set up the grid for the first race. So these are the grid looked like, and we went for it. So overall, not a particularly great race, but there was less crashes, especially around for James. So last week he was there, we had like 36 crashes. So now he's only 19, so which is a great improvement from almost half of the crashes. And actually, young cars is not was not performing that great. I mean, I think it's his tires are very small now, the rear ones, and so which means that I think the car is bottom up and touching the truck and then coming off. So that's like a lot of extra damage points. Still quick, but difficult to manage. So the second race, normally we would have like 2 races in daylights and then dusk, and say like 1 race we do daylights, and the other one in dusk conditions. So these are our dusk condition race, and this race was a bit more interesting, let's say. I think one of the one of the good results is that James is really he's really enjoying and driving the car. So now he's, for instance, completing more than 100 laps, so 105. improving on his crash rates, and in some parts of the truck, he's pretty quick. So overtaking him is not that easy anymore. Although he's running at, I think, 90% of full power, because I'm trying to tame his speed. So he's improving pretty quickly. So in no time, I think it will be very competitive. And the car is also very, very good. Not because I prepared it, but the car is really, really good and nice. Our race, I mean, the top three battling until the end. I mean, it was like in very close race, and damage points are where things are made or destroyed. My car is a bit better than the previous weeks. I kind of improved the rolling of the car, especially the front axle. I was never happy with this gray new chassis from Scale Auto, but I kind of tweaked it a bit more. Although the fuel usage is still a bit too high, because normally I would do 1.9, but I need to kind of push all the way. So it's at the moment 2.1 per lap. So which means that the speed strategy fuel consumption is very close with the others as well. And then we moved to the last race of Darkness and Reverse Grid. This was a very, very good race, very few crashes. So most of people. James fourth, but actually was because Combi decided to retire his car. But we made 121 laps and 118 from yeah. So overall, I think it was much smoother than the previous race. So anyway, so after this was done and dusted, then I said, okay, let's move to Oxygen 4.0 for testing. And as I mentioned before, so you need to upgrade the software of the dongle, or the firmware in the dongle, the firmware in the controllers, and the firmware in the chip. So this is not something that you can do just you know, in the night, racing night, and then move between the two systems, because it would take an hour to do like five controller, 5 cars and whatnot. So I had everything set up properly. I had some spares controller, so I used my SP3, and then I had the 4 spares controller that I already moved to SP2 control that I moved to Oxygen 4.0. So, and I think I mentioned that I was preparing this class of Fiat or Abarth 500. So these are all done with the lights using the B2 chip with moved to the new firmware, and it went pretty well. I mean, as I said, I'm using this small cheap Scalextric-like motor, but the 12 volts, they produce something like 13K RPM, so they're very slow, but for this car, they're perfect. And anyway, so these are the lineup of controllers that I was kind of I used. So as I said, there is one SP3 that is wireless, and the other 4 are all, I mean, typical Oxygen SP2 or common SP2 controllers, SCP2. So, and this is the software that we use. So at the moment, only Chrono can be used for doing these racing or using this new firmware. It's not the best, but it was just serving the purpose to check, you know, if there are any compatibility issues or any kind of interference between the SCP3 and the SCP2 or with the cars and whatnot. For the race, I used the old yellow dongle, not the blue one, and there were no problems. So these again were like short races of 10 laps. And the main reason was because Chrono at the moment, this version 4 is not stable yet. So for instance, if you click here, set race type, you can set, for instance, sounds for when the car laps around or when we have a best lap, or you can also set, for instance, if a car is slot, then you can have a truck call. So it stops everything or start into base car mode. Although I set up everything using this functionality, basically the software was not registering those changes. So I was in touch with the Slotty that told me, you know, delete the setting parts and then reboot the system, reboot the software and see what happens. I did that, but nothing changed. So I report these and they're kind of investigating. So, but the other thing was like I was checking if there was some kind of difference between the 3 and 4 in terms of latency when you're driving. And to be honest, I mean 3 is already very good, so there is no much difference. The only things that I can say that looks like is that the lap registration is a bit more real time. So when the car goes over the start finishing line with the 3, you have like a couple of seconds of delay before the lap gets registered in the software. So these are both chrono, RCAs and whatnot. With this one look like quicker, but unfortunately, because there is no sound when the lap is registered, I can only look at when, you know, there is the one of the fields get green when you register the new lap. And, you know, if you're racing and check whatever is happening, it was not that easy to see what's going on. But I did the impression as I was testing by myself that it looks quicker. So overall, I'm pretty happy because this can give a bit more extra longevity to some of the investment that I've done. I mean, like especially with the auto controllers, the SCP2 and the oxygen cards, seems that they're working for our needs, seems okay. So I just now need RCSO to be updated to the new version, maybe with some extra feature added. And we're good to go over here. So pretty happy with that. And with this, stopping the share.
So everything worked perfect on Oxygen 4.
Yeah. So it's really good, man. And the process for upgrading, especially the SP2, is a bit more involved than just moving from one firmware to the other one. So they are using these what they call midwife firmware, so that because what happens, you are moving from I think it's 250 to a full megabyte or megabit bandwidth, and the two systems are not compatible. So while you're moving the SP2 from so talking to the dongle at the bootloader from the 3 to the 4. So if you're doing straight from 3 to 4, you know that you have to disconnect or reconnect the device. Then what happens is that you are moving through the old firmware, and the firmware that you're installing before, basically once you disconnect or reconnect, is not able to talk anymore with the 250 version. So what you need is kind of a transition firmware. So you have to go from 304 to this 320, and then disconnect. Then change the firmware on the dongle, and it only works with the yellow one to 4.0, and then reconnect with the 320, move to 4 now, and then everything works. And if you have to do the downgrade, is the same. So it's a bit more involved, but to be honest, I don't care as long as it works. So actually, how do I know that it's important? Is because I tried to move from 304 to 4 directly through the blue dongle, and basically my controller kind of bricked, so I could not reconnect to anything. And I thought, okay, man, I have to send them the bloody device back to Slotted. But actually, then Christian, one of the engineers at Slotted, basically told me try to reconnect with the dongle yellow one with in version 4. I see whether you can complete the process and it can work. So also that one was happy that I could recover that bloody cartridge. So sorry for the rest of you. I'm not understanding what I'm talking. I think only Greg and Wayne maybe are understanding what I'm saying, but I'm really happy. So things are going in the right direction. So
Yeah.
You see, there's a race calendared for November that's potentially for me, but it runs on Oxygen 4, and I have an SCP2 with a digital cartridge. And at the moment, I've seen that fail dismally at Le Mans 24. Every SCP2 got replaced with an SCP3.
Okay, yeah.
As a lone controller for that event, because all the SCP2 running on 4 were failing. Cars were running away at full speed and things like that. So at the moment, I'm reticent to enter that event because I don't really expect my oxygen cartridge to function properly on 4. And you've given me a confidence vote there.
Yeah, for me, at least important here is that in a small settings, or in my small settings as it is, it works. So I'm happy about that. So that I don't need to transition everybody to the SP3 because it will be bloody expensive, or I need to throw away my old SP2 plus cartridges. So, And maybe for larger competitions, or there was Maurizio was saying that they might use the AMP module to produce a new cartridge that would work with that module directly, and so would allow still the SP2 to be usable in maybe in the larger settings. So yeah, I mean, if I'm going to do like a large event, I would take my SP3 without no doubt about that. That would require version 4. But for my small settings, man, I mean, it was everything seems working so far so good. So I don't know, maybe with the RCS, the things are going to break down again. I don't know, but so far, not really happy. And the worst case scenario, we stick with the
Gio, do you think you could equip one of your Fiats with a C chip and run 4 on a C chip?
Oh, okay. Yeah, good point. I will do that. Yeah. Okay.
So it's only fair for everybody else to understand that we are talking about the digital, slotted digital system called Oxygen 4.0, which is still in beta. They have made some questionable choices as far as when they should implement a beta product at a large event, but it's still in beta. It's going, you know, these are growing pains that we're going to figure out. And early on, it was assumed that the SEP2 with the original Oxygen cartridge was just not going to be able to do version 4 Oxygen at all, right? So, and the old dongle, I'd never heard when they sent V4 for the old dongle. I'm like, really? Oh, cool, because that was just like never a thing. So, you know. Things are changing. If you're into Oxygen, stick with your V3 for a while until you see slot it say version 4 is ready for everybody, and they'll have the bizarre things that Gio is having to go through figured out and ironed out. You might have to do some trickery to get it there, but at least you're not, like you said, at least you're not throwing away perfectly good hardware just to go up to the new version. So honestly, I applaud Mauricio for and Christian for doing that at all. Now I'm still playing with mine. I don't have a bunch of guys that I can invite over, so I haven't been testing as much as I should have. So thank you to Gio for all the testing you've been doing, and everybody else who's participating in the slotted Oxygen 4.0 beta program. Moving on to other topics, because we're starting to run out of time, I'm gonna do my own club corner. So we had a race last night at Allen's at Scale Racing Center. He does a live broadcast, so if you look up Scale Racing on YouTube, you can find the broadcast. It was not an advertised race because it was just the EMSA club racing there, so it wasn't like open to the public kind of race like most of his events are. We ran King of the Hill like we usually do, but for IROC we ran 6 proxy cars that were sent to me by Pero Toro on HRW, and David is his first name. He was on here earlier. I don't know if he's popped back in or not. He's on the other side of the country, so he might have decided to go have dinner or go to bed or something. But basically, he's entering the Home Racing World GT3 2024 proxy race, and he was interested in getting my feedback on his cars. And I'm like, you know, maybe send him to somebody else. I'm really not all that, but he sent him anyways. And, you know, I played with him around. I played with them a little bit on my home track, and they're all set up for wood tracks, so I couldn't race all of them on my home track. But they're all, you know, he used every trick in the book, right? He's been learning from the pros, and his cars were all set up with all the tricks I know of, and then some. So I was not very helpful feedback-wise. So I decided to bring them with me on last night's race and put them up for the IROC race. And they said, yeah, okay, we'll do that. And so the cars stayed in their lanes, and everybody rotated through the lanes, and everybody got a taste of every car. And then after the IROC race was over, I got everybody's opinion, which fortunately more or less corroborated what I had found playing with them on my home track. But that was kind of fun to basically do a sort of proxy race with one dude's cars, but they were all different, you know, in their own way. They all had their pros and cons, and everybody kind of weighed in on which cars they liked and why, or which cars they didn't like and why. And that actually all happened on live video on YouTube. And I did a little recording of it as well to send directly to him so he didn't miss out on anything. So now he knows which of the 6 cars we liked the best, and then that'll help him decide which of his 6 cars get sent in for the proxy race. So that was fun. And then we raced our second race of the RevoSlot Group 2s. And as I mentioned earlier, we have a good mix of cars. We've got Alphas and BMWs and Escorts, and they're all a blast to drive. They all ran really well on Alan's big old wood track. Crick Crack Racing, I think, is the maker of the track. Plenty of rubber on that track. They were all smooth. Most of us had done our tires and everything. Smooth and even and easy to drive, and it was a lot of fun. A lot more even than I would have expected them to be on such a large track, because you hit full speed at about a quarter of the way down his main straight, and then you're just watching your car chug along down the main straight at full tilt until the braking
Were
zone.
you running the 8-liner or the 6-lane?
The 6 lane, yeah.
Okay.
We usually run the 6 lane for our club tracks, for our club races. Yeah, I'm not sure how they would perform on the 8 lane. That's definitely a different kind of drive between the 8 and the 6 lane. But probably much the same. You know, the 8 lane is just
The
as
8-lane
rubber
has got a couple of those big sweepers, so that might be a bit different.
and parabolic sweepers. They open up and they tighten up, and like I said, a different drive. But the cars themselves would probably still be hooked up and still be fairly even with one another. Anyways, it was a good race, and I did okay. I'm happy with my results. And it was a good time. That's pretty much it. Mike, you ready?
Was that, Greg, was that on foam tires?
These are stock. These were bone stock, out of the box, no ballast, no nothing. Not installing the magnet, obviously, and you could glue your Truden tires. You couldn't change anything at all other than that.
But it wasn't foam tires.
Nope, we ran on stock rubber. Yeah, they didn't have a problem. Yeah, his tracks are mostly foam, raced on with mostly foam, but pretty much any good rubber hooks up pretty good on his track.
That's true from RC as well, where you take rubber tires to a circuit that's usually quite foamed in, they work.
Yeah, same. All right, let's move on to Mike. What you got? You're already unmuted. Go for it. Mr. Maurer. Can you hear us?
Yes. Yes, I can
It's your
hear you.
turn.
Sorry, I didn't hear my name. I thought you said Scott.
Michael.
Yeah,
Michael Maurer.
that would be Mike. So we had a interesting day. I'm still having issues with the shutoff on it, and the car's losing control, but it wasn't too bad. And we had 3 races. We did the 50s sports cars, Mercedes, and 250 TR, and I forget what the third one was, but that one wasn't on video, unfortunately, because some fool forgot to press the button right. So anyway, there's 2 out of the 3, but we did have we did some 70s Le Mans cars with the new slotted 512 and a 312P and a Matra, the slotted Matra, and the 512 took that one but with some trouble. It was interesting, but the most interesting race of the night was with 2 slotted GT1s. I had a Porsche 911 GT1 98 and McLaren F1 Longtail. And last time we ran those, the Longtail was about 4/10 behind the GT98. Well, I did some fettling on the McLaren, and there was, I think it was 5 thousandths of a second between the two cars. So it was going to be close. But the third car was a McLaren F1 MR slot car, which was not quite in the same league as the other two. So I did a BOP on it. And man, in order for either one of us to win that race, to either one of the slotted cars to win that race, we had to be on it every single lap, and we didn't do it. So it was really an interesting experiment in BOP, and I'm getting better at it as far as adjusting it. Because, you know, let's face it, racing when somebody runs away with it, or even if 2 out of the 3 guys are running away with it, it's not as much fun as when all 3 of us had the chance. And the interesting thing is that the strategy became paramount on these, because you had to hit your pit stops right. You had to hit everything right in order to beat the other car that was actually slower in qualifying, and it was slower by 0.2. So it was an interesting experiment and worked out really well. And if you want to catch the video, you can see that on Road America Northwest. So, but yeah, it was great fun. And she mentioned afterwards that it was one of the best races we've had in a long time, because the lead went back and forth all the time. And I basically threw it away by falling off the track too much. So it was I think I had 6 offs, and some of them were inflicted by ghost cars, because when ghost cars go through a corner, and if you touch them just a little bit, you're off. So you really, really got to tiptoe around them. And of course that affects your time overall too. So if you end up on your back foot because you've got to do qualifying laps in order to win the race, it gets tough. So it was fun. It was really challenging and good fun to do that. And we had a great time. So, and before I forget, when Dennis mentioned about the Group 2 cars, and I've got an Opel right here. Dennis, are you saying that you relieve the screws completely out at the rear, which I've done now, and then you snug up the front screws? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you
Not
have
tight
basically no
at the
float.
front, but no float on the front. No.
No float.
Just compress the rubber
All right.
just a little bit under the head of the screw.
Good. Okay, I was just making sure that I understood that correctly.
Otherwise, like Gio said, they move around too much.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. What I was concerned about is, the back end on this, you can see there's maybe you can. There's a lot of movement up and down on that, even with it snugged up. So what I have done in the past is put tape on the rear to keep it from getting to a point where it will hit the wheel wells on the body to prevent that. So I was thinking about that as you were talking about it. So,
but did it actually hit the wheel wells while you were driving it around, or just in your hand?
No, it would do both.
Okay.
It would, if there was enough slop in it. When I had,
and you do have the little rubber caps on the body posts at the rear, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And they are the right ones.
That's correct. The red ones are on the rear.
It's going to depend on your tire diameter too, Mike.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But you can't really get the tire diameter small enough to not have them hit when everything is loose. There's even with, in fact, you can see how much play there can be if you really push it up.
Well, that's a way.
Okay. And that's the wrong way, but I mean, it's there. So at any rate, I've been thinking about possibly gluing another piece of plastic or something at the rear so that you can't go up far enough to do it, to no matter what, but you have enough float in the rear of the body that it's okay. Anyway, just some thoughts.
So I was going to ask
second thought. Go ahead. What were you
I'm
gonna
gonna
say,
ask Wayne. Hold on. I was gonna ask what your maybe I missed it, but what was your balance of power on the MR slot car?
Oh, burn rate. What I've done so far is I've upped both the tank size and the burn rates. My normal burn rate is now 5 and 350 for the tank size, and that gives me about 20 to 25 laps depending on the driving in the car.
Okay.
And what I did is I reduced the burn rate on the MR slot car and gave them a little bit of a tank.
Okay, so because the MR slot car was slower than the slotted cars.
Correct. So I reduced the burn rate number, okay, and do that. And I've discovered that in order to do a better balance of power, if you're going to make someone have a higher burn rate, you're going to have to go at least 2 numbers ahead. Otherwise, it's not enough because tank size makes a difference.
Yeah.
So you can't just go up 1 number and give them a smaller tank size. That doesn't work. So if you go up 2 numbers on the burn rate, it generally becomes about 0.3 of a second, roughly, difference in qualifying time. So I'm dialing it in a little bit, and it seems to be working pretty well. You know, I am the ACI, I think is what they call it in Le Mans.
ACO. Yeah,
ACO.
are you using fuel weight in that system as well, Michael?
Fuel
weight
weight?
simulation. Fuel load
Pardon me?
simulation, yeah.
Yeah, it's load simulation, fuel simulation, yes.
Gosh, that is a
And
compliment.
that makes a big difference. And for me, it adds the fun. I love the ability of digital to be able to change lanes and stuff like that, but it's really a lot more fun because you have the challenge of your car handling differently about every 4 laps or so. You get, or less even sometimes, you get a change in your power rate that you can feel, and sometimes it comes at the wrong time. So you have to be very adaptable and judicious in how well you push the car. So you have to have a balance of how much you push it and how much you back off, because if you back out too far, you're going to lose. If you push it too hard, you're going to fall off, which is the way I generally tend to have it happen, because I'm
in
so
real
busy.
time, like while the races happen, while you're making your
Yes.
laps, you need to see how much fuel you've got left to know about when you're going to get the power boost so that you don't
Right.
hit it too early
And
or whatever.
sometimes you get red mist and forget about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it really gives you a lot more to think about. And for the other 2 guys that are mostly analog racers, it makes it really difficult for them. But they're getting better at it. I mean, this week everybody won a race, all 3 of us. So, and they were all fairly close. The last race, unfortunately I had a damage point that put me out in the last 3 laps, but I was gaining laps like crazy. I had with I think it was 8 laps to go. I only had 1 lap to make up, and I could have done it. And because I was going fast enough to do it, but I got ghosted on 1, and that was it. So, but it was a good try, and I had to push hard to do it. So it makes it really interesting from that stand for me. So, okay, that's all for me.
All right, thanks, Mike. Good stuff.
The other comment I was going to make. Sorry, Greg. The other comment I was going to make, Mike, about the. I presume you haven't driven that car without its back body screws yet.
The Revo?
No, I have not.
You haven't. Okay, so in my experience, I've fitted body shells to cars with as much as 4 millimeters of upward travel in the rear end of the car, and I'll tell you that in my experience, I've never seen a body shell jump that high. You can screw it down to about 0.5 millimeter, 1 millimeter, and yes, you can see the body dances slightly. But if you open that all the way up to like excessive amounts, the body shell won't actually jump that high in use. It's strange, but my experience is don't be concerned about how high that body shell can jump in the back unless it's actually happening. You know,
from experience, I can say that I have seen grooves in the tires from body hitting.
That's downward of the body. That's body shell moving down. But I'm talking about the body shell being able to move skyward.
Yeah,
it doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen for some reason. You can leave the back body screw out, like you've done.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, it doesn't go up. I was showing.
It doesn't go up that high. Yeah, it never does it on the track. Yeah.
All right,
Cool.
I think that's enough of that. Thanks, Wayne.
Nice.
We're
I
over
gotta
time, but it's
go.
my
I'll see
birthday,
you
so
next
I don't
week.
care. See you next week, Dennis. Dewan has something he wants to ask about or share. Go ahead, Dewan. He was at the ready.
Okay,
Oh, look at that, far out.
Yeah, we had a far out race this past weekend. I'll do real quick, get through it in a minute. This is out the Claremont Raceway with Jim Weissman. Yeah, at his home. It's a nice little track. We had a nice showing, 23 racers.
That's a heck of a turnout, Dewan. That's awesome.
Exactly. So that's
and Eddie.
Yeah, a lot of guys. And this is the track. There's Walt there, and Jim, the owner, and Chris. Anyway, and Marco decided to stop by with his wife for a hot second. He's buying some supplies, and he was in the area, but he didn't race. And a little more of the track, and then we raced the two Revo classes. One was the GT2s, the new ones, and I had an Alpha that I was submitting. I had to use my Alpha. I bought a new Opel, but I didn't get a chance to get it tuned up prior to that, so I didn't use my new Opel. And then we had the second class was the Le Mans Classics. And this is the results. We had Kevin Tabucci winning, nicking out Tom Giese by a tenth of a track. I mean, this was just so super close. And I finished in I finished in 20th out of 23, so it wasn't too bad.
Finished not last.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah. Oh no! This is okay. You know what? This one I actually finished 18th. They even haven't sorted properly. This is the classic. Okay, I thought this is so I actually finished 18th out of 23. So I really felt good about that. That car was much better hooked up, and my driving's getting a little bit better, but not that bad. The next race I did a little bit worse. I finished 19th. No, I finished 20th out of 23. And again, Kevin narrowly eased out Tom Giese. They both finished first and second, this time by 3/10 of a track partition. And this weekend we'll be racing again, and it'll be at the Los Angeles Slot Car Museum track. Gonna have a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to going there and bringing a few guests with me to kind of get some woos and wows about the whole museum experience.
Nice.
That's it.
Awesome. Fantastic way to end the show. So I'm going to go over to my YouTube and hit the end stream button. So and then until next week. Oh, let me make sure you're okay. So until next week, everybody wave bye. Bye. And stream done. Okay.